We want to pay attention to how we present our spiritual lives in ways that hurt or support our emotional lives.
Dr. Anita Phillips is an acclaimed trauma therapist, life coach, and minister who is an expert at unraveling the human experience.
So that emotional awareness, how it is impacting the culture that you're creating or supporting, is what I would like people to be aware of when I step off that stage.
She hosts the podcast In the Light, where she talks with special guests and everyday callers about thriving in love, life, and relationships.
Pastor Wife life is a minefield, emotionally and mentally and spiritually, because you're not in a regular marriage. There's a third entity here.
With a lifetime of experience as both a pastor's kid and a pastor's wife, and holding degrees from both the University of Maryland and Regent University, and a postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Anita Phillips is uniquely bilingual at speaking spiritually and professionally at the same time.
And nothing undermines your emotional, mental, and spiritual health like not being able to be you.
That was a major bomb.
Don't miss your chance to see Dr. Phillips live at the 2022 International Leadership Summit. Register to attend in person or virtually at thisisils.org.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm good, Bishop. How are you?
I'm really good. Really good. Really excited to have you at the International Leadership Summit and to have your unique contribution to the myriad of speakers that are going to be speaking on that platform. Really excited by the response of people coming literally from around the world.
Wow.
Traveling for hours. Some on flights all day to be there. 7 hotels are sold out, completely sold out. Yeah. And many people are looking for places to stay. And so we're glad to have you because you're going to have a very unique perspective to share with them that I think is going to be refreshing. And I think it's going to be quite helpful. The people that are coming back into our churches, into our businesses, onto our staff, into our lives, having been inundated with racial tensions, political tensions, sociological tensions of all types and descriptions. How should we be sensitive as leaders to the differences between who they were before and who they may be coming back?
We've all been changed, Bishop, by what we have lived through since March of 2020. And leaders have been changed. So I think first, leaders should be aware of and honest about how they have changed so that they can stay in touch with empathy for how their employees, members, volunteers have also changed. People have been shaken by the losses of the last 2 years, whether it was the traumatic death of a loved one from an unexpected, unheard of disease, to just the loss of choice, the loss of predictability, which is extremely disconcerting for us. And for some people, it has reached the level of trauma for sure. It's not our imagination. We have truly been overwhelmed. And so there's going to be a patience that needs to be applied and an open ear and a willingness to work with people while they reestablish a sense of safety and familiarity in their world.
I couldn't wait to hear what you had to say about that. I think it's very valuable and very important. I wanted to ask you, in this highly competitive culture for talent that we're in right now, how can we be prepared to consider, enhance who people are and not just what they do?
I think it's critical for the survival of any organization to reconsider the way they view their raw building material, which is the people that you bring into your organization. We know that we just had the Great Resignation. People said, hey, my life is more than a job that's not treating me well. My life is more than crumbs. After walking through these 2 years, people are looking at their lives differently. They want a sense of meaning. They want to be fairly compensated. They want to be seen as human beings. Our organizational cultures need to be examined. We need to change the culture of our organizations in any way that they limit welcoming people back or onboarding new people who now have this mindset. And crisscross that with the millennial generation and Gen Z, they are definitely not having it, right? The way that we grew up at work, how you dress, how you speak, how you come in person or not, man.
Right.
Flexibility is going to be required at a high level and a lot of emotional awareness.
When you start talking about, we're talking to a lot of different kinds of people, but as it relates to the church, do we incur a certain degree of danger by treating emotional ills with spiritual solutions? Do you think that sometimes we oversimplify the depth of trauma and, praise your way out and clap your hands, it's going to be all right, sow a seed? What should we be saying in this climate?
Those things are so interrelated, and that's one of the challenges. Our spirit, soul, and body are like a braid. Everything overlaps everything in order to put it together. And so we can sometimes think that one strand is more powerful than another strand, but we have to pay attention to being balanced and even keeled. The church's job is to strengthen us spiritually. And so as we increase our awareness of emotional health and mental health and learn about mental illness and trauma, it's important that the church does remain the church, right? Our job is spiritual, but we want to pay attention to how we present our spiritual lives in ways that hurt or support our emotional lives. So I'm not asking the church to start being counselors and therapists and all talking about emotions, but we do need to look at how our view of emotion has impacted our presentation of God. Wow. Have we presented God as a God who doesn't care about our feelings? Have we presented emotion as something that waters down our spirituality? Sometimes we say, oh, is that God or is that just your emotions? It can't be separated. The seed of the word falls on the heart, and the heart has an impact on how the seed is received. And so we need to be careful in the way that we deliver our spiritual work, that we don't undermine or pain the heart so that the seed is then not blooming to its potential because we hurt the ground where we were sowing it.
When you think about that, I wake up in the morning. If I want to take my blood pressure, I can. If I want to check my blood sugar, there's apparatus to do that. There is no apparatus to test my trauma. How do you know when you're emotionally in trouble, especially when you are trained to override your senses?
Yeah, exactly. And senses is it, right? Our body is the thermometer for our heart. There is no way to pull apart our emotions and from our bodies. And when we are not experiencing when we're not experiencing our emotions explicitly, like I'm aware of my sadness, a tear is rolling down my face, or I'm excited and I feel butterflies, they tend to hide in our bodies. We have taught our bodies to hold our emotions for us because we are not in touch with them and we are not processing them. So I encourage people, when you wake up in the morning, before you pick up your phone and check it, before you turn on the news, be still. We are so rarely still. And then stay still again until the emotions beneath that come up. You should be able to get up and say how you are feeling today emotionally. Sometimes I'll say, well, how are you feeling? I feel ready to go. That's not an emotion, people. I want to know if you feel happy. Are you inspired? Right. Do you feel worried? Are you sad? But you have to sit still and allow things to come to the surface so that you can address them directly. And your body will give it to you if you listen.
It's so funny because I was not trained to ask myself, how do I feel?
Right.
I was trained to ask myself what needs to be done. So to go on a voyage down into my emotional well, I do pretty well with emotional language, but the journey to dig down in there and the risk of running into an answer I don't want.
Exactly.
I'll close the door on it and come back and check it in a week or two. But in so doing, you're saying you could damage your own health and body.
Absolutely, and we can look at marginalized groups, for example, here in the United States, who have been under extreme emotional pressure for decades because of racism, or groups who have been under there because of poverty. We simultaneously see physical health disparities arise with that because our bodies are linked to our emotions. And so high blood pressure, diabetes, insomnia, migraines, all known to have a strong connection to what's happening to us emotionally. And it's showing up in physical symptoms, but it has fuel that it's pulling from where we are emotionally. And so when we tap into that and allow those emotions to be experienced and allow that frustration to pass through us, that tear to fall down our face, we are lowering the temperature, so to speak, in our bodies. We're making space for our immune system to be boosted and for us to rest well and to live longer.
Yeah.
To live longer. And so people say, I don't deal with these feelings. Yeah, you're dealing with them at the doctor's office and you're dealing with them with that early death.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessary because you worked yourself to death. And our parents and our grandparents, look, they had less opportunities to do this, right? They were working sun up, sun down. But that's changing. And so we can change with it by bringing up this awareness.
Talking to Dr. Anita Phillips, well-trained, well-experienced in understanding what's going on in our mind, and as a therapist and as a counselor, but you're also a woman, a wife, you've been a pastor's wife. Do you think that there are certain things that pastors' wives internalize just by nature of the culture of the church that are detrimental? And if so, would you speak to them for a moment?
For sure, pastor wife life is a minefield emotionally and mentally and spiritually. First of all, it's isolating because you're not in a regular marriage. There's a third entity here. And that is, the church can be a mistress in
Right.
no small way. There's a large entity that's in your world. And so the marriage dynamic is different. Pastors' wives can't talk about things openly in the same way as other people can talk about it in the church because they are in a position of leadership. And so you don't vent to your people, and it can limit even friendships and relationships. So it can be isolating in that way. We tend to be very careful to protect our husbands. And so that can undermine our friendships. Very often within the same town, pastors' wives will not be close because their husbands are in a similar field working. And so the isolation is very, very serious. The second challenge is the role demands. What do people expect a pastor's wife to be? How do they expect the first lady to behave? And that may or may not match her personality.
Right.
And so there's not always room for her to be her authentic self, and nothing undermines your emotional, mental, and spiritual health like not being able to be you.
When you walk off that stage as a speaker, what is the feeling that you want to leave behind, or the change you want to leave behind to the audience that heard you?
I want the audience to have a new level of emotional awareness when I walk away. So often we believe that emotions and business don't mix, emotions and leadership don't mix, but we lead from an emotional place. We gain feedback emotionally. We like to know things are going well. So when we feel good emotionally, it's all so tied up in leadership. And one of the ways it's especially tied up is in the organizational culture that we create as leaders. And very often we think the culture is in the manuals, it's in the employee handbook and the policies, but it's not. It's an unspoken thing through which our personalities as leaders, our history, our fears can permeate the organization in a way that actually undermines its growth, slows its evolution, and will keep it from being a legacy that exists beyond our lifespan. And so that emotional awareness, how it is impacting the culture that you're creating or supporting, and how it will impact the long-term health of your organization is what I would like people to be aware of when I step off that stage.
Wow. I want that too. One final question. When you look at pastors today, having pastored a couple of years with the doors closed or open and half attended, what do you think their head is? Where do you think their head is right now?
Pastors are struggling right now in particular. And I think all people who are leaders are struggling with the changing landscape. Nothing looks familiar, and that's incredibly disconcerting. It doesn't look like what they had defined success as being, and that's incredibly disconcerting as well. Pastors in particular, though, seem to really be struggling. A study came out that was done by Barna Research Group. It was published in November of 2021. They surveyed a large swath of pastors across the US and found that 38% of them had considered quitting in the last 12 months. 38% had considered quitting. And that percentage was higher for pastors under 45 years old. Pastors' hearts are drained. Many of their hearts were broken by the fissures that opened up in the body of Christ during these 2 years, whether it was about race or vaccines, being open, being closed, not wearing masks. So many pastors I've heard lament that people who they married, counseled, whose children they christened, left them. And now we see this high percentage of people who are wondering, do I keep going? So we need to be paying attention to pastors' emotional health because they're not all okay right now.
The scary thing about that is if a pastor is not okay and he's still got the mic, then the word that's coming through him may be laced with the strychnine of what's happening in him. We're very loyal to our leaders. So, sometimes we don't detect that the behavior of the pastor is not associated to his mood swings or his immorality as much as it is him self-medicating a pain that he doesn't know how to fix and doesn't have the permission to say, I'm not okay. We're supposed to be supermen and superwomen. And to get to say, I'm not okay is exactly why the leadership conference exists. So that those of us who feed the most can be fed and be poured into and be strengthened. And you are certainly a key element, a great entree on the smorgasbord of ministry that we're going to provide for people. I thank you for who you are and what you've done with your life and how you've given your life to serving other people. We're so excited about you being a part of the International Leadership Summit. Grateful to God for you and looking forward to hearing everything that God's going to do through you.
Bishop, I'm so excited about ILS. I've been inviting people left and right. I'm as excited to hear the other speakers as anybody else. And I pray that God will use me to touch people in all spheres. I want to thank you for creating this incredible conference where we have the opportunity to translate across multiple dimensions of society and business and faith, and also particularly in the area of mental health, because you have been a trailblazer in talking about mental health since Woman Now or Loose. You were talking about sexual abuse when nobody was talking about it, and you continue to open the door for me and others to point out how central this is for us spiritually, physically, emotionally, organizationally. And I want to thank you for that. You continue to be a trailblazer. Don't know where we'd be without you.
You're most welcome. I appreciate that. You got me blushing. Listen, friends, if you're watching right now, go to thisisils.org as quick as you can and register for the conference. Get your hotel room, get your ticket, or get in your car with your girlfriends or your family or your dog or your cat or whatever you need to do to be a part of this great meeting. It's going to be a unique opportunity, not only to become a master builder, but to be built back up again. Some of us are torn down. We lay in ruins. Our walls have been shattered. Our behavior is a reflection of the fact that we've lost our boundaries. We've lost our way. And we're suffering in silence because we are the only people that we hear. So you come right now and register for this conference. And those of you who are in leadership up under pastors, and find out how you can better perfect the gifts that lie within you. I'll see you in Charlotte, North Carolina. Don't miss it. When he calls greatness, he's calling me.
That makes me want to break out dancing.
I'm talking to you. The kind of stuff that schools don't teach you.